Twilight Heart, Chapter 6, Hidden Secrets. Aurora burst out of the gym, happily gazing at the small trinket in her hands. Zone shook his head in disgust. "What's so great about the badge anyways?" he asked, with his arms folded across his chest. Aurora frowned. "It's the symbol of my victory, a sign of hope." A piece of useless metal?" Zone smirked amusingly, watching the girl stand in silence. Aurora crossed her arms and huffed. "You just wouldn't get it," she retorted. Shinx watched the two fight and sighed. "Poor Aurora. She's gonna lose this fight." Aurora picked up Shinx and shot a glare at Zone and started to walk off. "Route 209 is that way?" He pointed in the direction opposite of the way she was walking. Aurora spun around and blushed in embarrassment. I knew that," she said as she walked past Zone, still glaring at him. And before she knew it, clang! Main character runs into pole. Classic element of physical comedy. Now's the part where we all throw our heads back and laugh. Ready? Ready? She walked headfirst into a pole, as if we didn't already know that, and stumbled back to the floor, rubbing her swollen cranium. Zone couldn't help but crack a smile. He walked over and offered a hand. "Need help?" Aurora continued to blush from all of her mistakes. I can get up myself, you know." She stood up and dusted herself off. "You sure? I have a pretty good feeling you're gonna get yourself lost again," he replied. Aurora frowned again. "Stop treating me like I'm a baby. I know what I'm doing." "Stubborn girl," Zone mumbled and followed after. On the road again. I can't wait to get on the road. Vailstone! They reached the woods far away from Vailstone as they walked under the shroud of trees before them. "Whoa, these trees are huge," Aurora exclaimed in awe. Zone looked at her with an "I told you so" look. Aurora frowned and turned away. "You didn't have to come along, you know," she scoffed with her hands on her hips. Zone rolled his eyes. "Who's to say you won't get lost, and I'll end up saving your life again?" "Well, Aurora stopped after hearing his words. "Wait, you saved me?" Zone immediately gasped, trying to act as if nothing happened. Aurora put on a huge grin. "So you did save me!" she gleefully screamed throughout the entire forest. Zone sunk into his shoulders with the faintest of blushes across his face. "So what if I did?" Aurora smiled a bit. "So, why did you save me then?" Zone grimaced, trying to hide his blush. "It was in my best interest to do so," he said as he flicked his hair out of his eyes and began to walk off. Aurora reached out and grabbed his arm before he could even take a step, causing him to blush even more so. "You're not really as much of a jerk as you make yourself out to be, are you?" "I beg your pardon?" he asked angrily, clenching a dark aura in one of his hands, unknown to her. Aurora placed her hands behind her back innocently. "Well, oh, never mind," she said as she picked up her stuff and began to walk. Zone stood there in complete confusion, but shrugged it off and followed. They continued to travel through the woods. Zone casually walked with his hands in his jacket pockets. Shinx happily pawed behind, and Aurora, holding a map of the Sinnoh region, oblivious to the fact that she had it upside down. "Solaceon town shouldn't be too far from here," said Aurora. Zone casually nodded, not really caring, and followed. But a few moments later, there was a small splash, followed by a tremendous shriek. Zone plugged his ears and sped over to Aurora. "Aurora, what happened?" he asked, concerned. Aurora turned to him, then pointed down at her pink shoes, now sopping in the wet muck on the floor. Zone scowled. "That's it? Your shoes?" Aurora scowled back. "These were special imports all the way from Poketopia." Zone put his head in his hands and sighed. "Zone, my man, I feel ya. 'Cause trust me, when Windy starts getting in that mood, forget it." "Hey, Bowser, I'm trying to tell a story here!" "Sorry." Aurora took another step and landed waist deep in another pit of the same muck. Her eye twitched feverishly. Damn it, could this day get any worse? Oh, I wouldn't say that when Murphy could hear you. Just then, a drop of water hit her square in the nose and trickled down, then followed by another and another, until she soon realized it was raining. Zone helped her out as the rain got harder. We should find a place to set up for the night. Aurora shivered, cold and wet, and nodded. Zone spotted a nearby cave and helped her in as they collapsed on the rocky floor. The two sat somewhat apart on opposite ends of the small dark shelter. The cave dripped from the on-pouring rain. It was cold, dark, and damp. Aurora shivered, cuddling herself next to Shinx, while Zone seemed pretty content laying against a large rock with his feet kicked back. He noticed Aurora was shivering and stood up. "Where are you going?" she asked. "You're shivering. I'm going to make a fire," he responded. He eyed a few vines hanging in the back of the cave and began to concentrate. Aurora closely watched in confusion, and gasped when she saw a dark aura begin to envelop him. All the energy slowly channeled into his hands, forming a large ball of dark energy. He opened his eyes and thrust it outwards on the vine, causing them to snap and fall to the floor, burning brightly in blue flames. Aurora sat in shock, her eyes wider than ever. She couldn't believe what she saw. A human? With abilities like that? Was it even possible? Zone brought over the vines and set them down in front of her, as they bathed her in the warm light they offered. "Zone, how did you—" she asked, still in disbelief. He looked to the side. "I'm not really sure myself," he responded, as he fed the fire. Aurora kept her gaze on him. "So, then, the Myana, you—" "Yes, I took care of them and their leader," he smirked. Aurora smiled back a bit and slowly inched a bit closer to him by the fire until she was up against him. Zone raised an eyebrow at her as she rested her head on his shoulder. He couldn't help but smile slightly as she slowly began to fall asleep. "You hold the key to my truth, girl. You're all I need to know my cause," he said, stroking her hair while she fell into a deep slumber. Chapter 7. Morning Melodies. Sunlight broke through the thick woods and scared away the morning shadows that lined the cave. The sounds of cricket chirping echoed throughout the woods. Aurora lay asleep, huddled on Zone's chest, who had never himself fallen asleep, and watched over her throughout the night. Slowly, she began to stir and let out a yawn as she fluttered her eyes and looked up. She blushed a tint of red and immediately jumped off. "Well, good morning, princess," he said with a hint of sarcasm in his voice. Aurora frowned. You were cuddling me!" Zone opened an eye. "Actually, I was just laying here. You're the one that came onto me." Aurora huffed and sat up as her blush slowly faded. She looked over to see Shinx, still fast asleep, small sparks of electricity crackling from its tail each time it took in a breath. "Shinx," she coaxed. "Time to wake up, sleepyhead." She smiled as she prodded it lightly. Zone watched and closed his eyes. 3, 2, 1. The silence was broken by a loud screech as a startled Shinx let loose a flurry of sparks on its master. Aurora fell back, her dress slightly charred and her hair completely poofed up. Zone couldn't help but chuckle. "You may want to check your hair," and went back to lounging against the rock. "Oh no, not my hair!" she shrieked as she quickly began to fix it up frantically, searching through her bag for a comb. "Gee, what a stereotypical girl." "Hey, Mario." "Shut it!" After about an hour of Aurora perming her hair, Zone finally stood up and stretched. He gazed out at the now lit woods. Judging from the light, it was probably around 10 o'clock. "We should head on out now," he said as he started to walk out. "Hey!" Aurora called as she grabbed her stuff and Shinx and chased after. Aurora trailed behind with her arms holding Shinx, while Zone studied the pathway before them. "Solaceon Town is your next stop, correct?" he asked. Aurora replied with a nod. Shinx's ears perked, and it began to bark and let out a low growl. Shinx, what's up with you? Aurora asked. But before she could get a response, it leapt out of her arms and dashed into a bush, out on a hunt. Shinx, come back! She called as she gave chase, along with Zone. A small red Pokemon ran with its stubby legs. Its hands clasped together as Shinx pursued it. Its antennae almost were in Shinx's reach. Right when it found itself at a dead end, it slowly turned around to see the two humans run up behind Shinx. A Pokemon? Aurora asked, as she flipped out her Pokédex.
Kricketot, the cricket Pokemon. Kricketot is known for its common melodies when its antennae clap together. It is said to resemble that of a xylophone.
A Kricketot, huh? Aurora said as she clasped the Pokédex and pocketed it. Cricky? It shivered as it watched the Shinx, towering above it, show its fangs. Looks like a coward, Zone scoffed. Shinx can take care of it. Well, I think it's cute, Aurora replied. The Kricketot cocked its head in confusion. Hey, I know, Aurora said, whipping a small red and white ball from her belt. I'll catch it for my next gym battle. Aurora stood before the Kricketot with Shinx at her side. Ready to go, Shinx? She asked. Shinx barked eagerly as its fur fizzled. Zone simply stood and watched. Now, you wouldn't wish to harm me, would you? It pleaded. Shinx grinned. No worries. I always play with my food first. This made Kricketot fade with fear. Alright, Shinx, let's start off with Thunderbolt! Shinx let loose a small jolt of electricity as Kricketot simply leaped out of the way onto a nearby tree. Aurora gasped. That Kricketot sure is fast. Shinx frowned. Hey! Get back down here, you coward! Oh, no. I'm rather content up here, it replied, clacking its antennae together. Shinx, try a takedown, Aurora called, as Shinx collided into the tree, causing Kricketot to lose its balance and fall to the floor. Alright, finish it with Spark! Shinx let loose a huge bolt that knocked Kricketot square in the belly as it fell back with swirls in its eyes, twitching. Alright, here we go! She exclaimed as she threw the ball at the fainted Kricketot. Enveloped in a red light and was sucked inside, the ball closed and fell to the floor, wiggling. Aurora studied it carefully. Once, twice, thrice. Ding! Now wait a second, I thought it was supposed to go click, not ding. Technicalities, Mario. In the show, it kinda goes ding, okay? No technicalities, please. Ow! A smile spread across her face as she picked it up and held it up high. Yeah, we got Kricketot! Zone gave a smug look. Must you do that every time? Aurora turned away, ignoring Zone, and pocketed the newly caught Kricketot. They continued on down the path they originally strayed from. Think Kricketot will aid me in my next battle? Aurora asked. Zone shrugged. Beats me. Aurora frowned a bit, and turned back to the road ahead. Solaceon Town was now in view. With Kricketot joining as a new ally, Aurora and Zone have now made it to Solaceon Town. But now the question lies ahead. What things are going to happen in Solaceon Town? Find out in the next chapter. Stroll in Solaceon Town. Yeah, I know, that's real original, isn't it?